So imagine a scenario where a couple of your friends and you are ready to hit the beach. You have the cooler filled with drinks and snacks, your car is filled up with fuel, and you're just ready to go. You're eager to make it, and you make it to the beach, ready to hit your toes in the sand. Come to find out that the parking is $6 per hour. Or if you're doing a day trip, it would be $35 per day. Now that is a lot of disappointment and dread just looking at the parking meter. This isn't just a rare scenario, but it is rather a reality, a harsh reality, a reality based off of economics and policies. And me and my family fall victim to this because we like to go to the beach every summer. We try to go as many times as possible. But it does bring a lot of frustration knowing that it costs a lot of money just for your car to sit in the sun while you're in the beach. Am I right? And looking more into these public parking fees in concerns to Wrightsville Beach and Carolina Beach and Outer Banks, I came to a big surprise in what these parking fees and its revenue is being allocated for and being used for. And in my speech, I like to go over three things. First, I would like to go over what exactly is causing these tax rates, or not tax rates, but these parking fees, and as well as what they're using them for, what these coastal towns such as Wrightsville Beach are using them for, alongside with what impact it makes on those such as college students that have a really tight budget and low income families. And then moving on from that, I will go over what specific policy changes we can make and amend to the NC legislature to accept these changes, followed by a visualization of a future given that we are successful in making these policy changes. Because they make a big difference, believe it or not, when I mention them. So, before I explain what specific policy changes we can amend to, I'm going to go over what impact these high fees and parking rates make on those such as college students and low-income families, as well as what they're actually being used for. So it all begins with the NC, or North Carolina has a public trust doctrine, which everybody has access to wet, dry sand beaches. And while technically you are free to roam on the beach and walk around there, the parking is more of a luxury, a quote unquote luxury. And that's just not fair for those such as college students and low income families that just want to have a good time. During my audience analysis, 100% of my respondents had said that they've gone at least one time per year at Wrightsville Beach in North Carolina. However, 60% of them admitted to either making changes to their vacation plan, which either they would shorten it or entirely move to another spot instead of going to the beach. They would cancel out the beach entirely. And that's definitely disappointing given that most people like to go to the beach, exactly. And that leads me to what exactly do they use these parking revenues for? And believe it or not, they use them for general funds. They don't use them like other cities and other towns for specifically parking maintenance. In the general statute 168-15, it stated that cities are only specifically allowed to use their parking revenue specifically for parking maintenance and anything within that. And in this case, it would have to be in regards to recreation and parking and pedestrian infrastructure. However, the NC General Assembly stated that coastal towns can use these parking revenues for general funds. Alongside that, they can use it to benefit property homeowners of these coastal towns such as Wrightsville Beach. So looking over here, we can see local property tax rates, and this is per $100 value. Over here we have an NC State average, and this is 82 cents. Now, would you look at that small little bar right here? This is Wrightsville Beach. and this is 5 cents. And this is this was reported by Ben Wagner of WHQR NPR Broadcast News. And this is just a big difference. This shows that the parking revenues are being used for the benefit of property homeowners. It's almost like an elite scheme. And it's not fair for those who aren't residents of coastal towns, such as Wrightsville Beach, Outer Banks, etc. And if this were to keep going, the price and the parking rates would just skyrocket up. It would not be great, and the crowds would just go down. The beach crowds would just go down entirely. And now that we've covered what exactly these surprising schemes is being made and what its purpose of the parking revenues are being done, we can determine what specific policy changes we can make. First off, a good idea is to use these parking revenues towards its actual purpose. And in this case, it would be trash cleanup within the beach environment, the parking infrastructure, the pedestrian infrastructure, alongside with coastal marine life and conservation. These are the main things that the parking revenue should be allocated towards. However, it's not like that. Another good policy change would be to lower the tax rate or have a tax cap, and that would. We're talking roughly about $4 to $5 per hour, or in the case of a day trip, it would be $20 to $25 per day. Now, while it may seem pretty low or pretty big of a decrease in tax rate or fee rate, Wrightsville Beach and other coastal towns will still have that profit no matter what. They're only using this high pay rate to their advantage to use those such as college students and low-income families as a cash cow. And now that we see what specific policy changes can be made, we can determine what kind of future we see. But let's think, what would the future look like if we were unsuccessful in making these changes? For the most part, as I mentioned before, the rates would just skyrocket up. They would keep escalating and escalating until it gets excessively high. I'm talking really, really high. It could get as high as up to $8 per hour, and in terms of day trips, $40. Now that's just way too excessive. And in regards to that, the beach isn't no longer going to be a natural resource, a natural free resource for everybody. It's going to be more of a economically segregated environment for the elites and resort guests to have that, luxury too. However, if we were to successfully have these policy changes made, we could see a much brighter future, more of like a win-win situation. And that would be these parking fees and the revenue would be allocated towards something important. And that's not to say that the general funds is not important. It's just saying that these revenues and fees are being used for a better cause, for trash pickup, for a cleaner environment, if you would. And also, you would notice that if these changes were to be made, college students and low-income families wouldn't have such a hassle and a feeling of dread knowing that they have to pay so much money for just having their car sit in the parking lot. But this is different. They'll be more pleased and have that excitement and not that dread. And this covers all the three things that I wanted to mention. First, with being what these revenues are being led to and what they're channeled to, as well as the impact it has on those with low income and a tight budget in general. Second, we discussed what specific policy changes could be made, followed by how that could impact the future of coastal environments and coastal towns, and economically how that would affect the beach in general. And so the next time you pack up your car, get your cooler ready full of drinks and snacks, getting ready to hit the beach, just don't check your bank account because you know how high those parking rates are going to be. They're going to be really high. So I advise that some change could be made to these parking fees. Thank you.